Hi everyone, and welcome to a new video. I think this is going to be like one of the first proper book videos of the year, and I wanted to talk about like my favorite books of the year of 2023 and what books I really enjoyed. I did do some rereadings of books that I really love, so I'm not going to add them to the list because I feel like I've already read them. I knew they were going to be 5-star reads, so I will try to just speak about the books that was new to me of the year and books that I gave 5 stars. Some of these books are also classics that I really want to do more of like an analyzing on, so some of the books I going to make a longer video on, just analyzing the classics, but this is just like a quick video of books that I really enjoyed, and maybe they will be your new favorites and maybe you will enjoy them just as much as I did. And I will try to match all the rooms I'm in to the actual book and the theme of the book, and I hope you will enjoy it. But before we get into the video, I really want to thank my members of this channel for the support and everything. And if you want to be a supporter as well, you can find my memberships down below. I have done so. The membership is going to be a little bit cheaper because I feel like I cannot, with a good heart, take $5 per membership. So now they are a little bit cheaper if you really want to have those emotes and the badge. But for now, I want to say thank you to my 3 members, and it's Sarah Stillspear, Dirge Clades, and Jack. Thank you so much for supporting my channel as always, and let's get into the video. So, the first book I really want to speak about is Raven of the Inner Palace. It's about this raven consort who does magic, and a lot of people in the inner palace comes to her for help in different matters. And it's very rare for the emperor to come to the raven consort. And not a lot of people know how she looks like, or how old she is, or what she does, and a lot of people is actually even scared of her. She is like a young woman. She's kind of beautiful. She's a little bit of a brat, and I really do like her old aesthetic. If you're really into Chinese kind of old palaces and history stories with a little dash of magic, this is the book for you. It's a light novel. And I started reading it in the morning one day, and I finished it in the evening because I couldn't legitimately put it down. I love it so much, and when I had finished it, I just had to buy the rest of the series. There is an anime on it, and after reading the first book, I did try to watch the anime, but I was not really impressed with the anime. It does have a really cool style and all that, but I felt like the book gave you a lot more in depth of the story than the anime did. I felt like the anime was very shallow to what the actual story was. So if you're really into Chinese kind of like palaces, emperors, magic powers and stuff, it is really good. I also like that all the chapters are divided as if there are a new case. So every time like the Raven Consort has like a new thing to do, like, you know, someone comes to her and they're like, oh, I want help with this, and is my husband dead? Can you find the ghost of this person? Can I speak to this dead person? Can you find this person, or can you find who this belongs to, or is this person haunting me, and stuff. Like, new things come up. There are like one chapter for each, almost as if they're one episode per anime, which I really like, because that kind of divides it into like different stories. You do have to read them in chronological order though, because there is a little bit of like a love story going on with the Raven Consort and the Emperor later on, and like friendship between the Raven Consort and other people in the palace. She's always been alone before, but starting off this book when she is introduced to the Emperor and he needs her help with something, she is also introduced to other people who then later on become her friends, and some become enemies, and so on. And she's never really had that going for her. And they also explore what is the Raven Consort and what is her purpose really. It's a really beautiful book, and I really, really liked it. It's very straightforward. I know a lot of reviews said that the English and the translation was really, really bad, but I think that's because they have read maybe like people who translated it for fun on the internet. Because when I read it, I bought like the legitimate book of it, and it was not really bad English grammar at all, so I could not really see that issue. But I do recommend it. Go check it out. If you're into light novels and you want something light and simple, but still want to have a little bit of magic and adventure, ghost stories, Chinese palaces and all that, it has it all. The next book I really want to talk about is a gothic story. But it's not really just a gothic story, because it's also a parody of a gothic story. And as many of you might know, gothic stories are one of my favorite genres of all time. This is a book I'm going to do a longer video on, so do not fret. It is by Jane Austen, and it's called Northanger Abbey. It's one of the only Jane Austen's novels I didn't read, because I've heard that she died before the book was ever done. So I also heard that they did a little bit of like putting things together before they published it, so like the ending wasn't properly hers. So I was a little bit afraid of picking this book up, but in the end I did, and I'm so happy I did, because I think this is one of my favorite Jane Austen books of all time. It's about this girl who who is really, really into gothic novels. She reads a lot of books, and they explore the fact that maybe reading gothic novels isn't the best for a young woman. And at this time, a gothic novel would be like a crime book of today. It would have maybe castles and some murders and some mysteries going on, and maybe even a ghost that want revenge. And this was probably not something a lady was supposed to read, but she really, really enjoyed it. And she enjoyed it so much that she became a little bit of delusional. And as soon as she heard some stuff, she started putting one and one together, thinking she was in an actual gothic story herself. So she becomes intertwined with this guy who invites her into his castle, so to speak. And she gets there, and she's really, really in love with him and he in her. But she starts putting together why his household is so sad, and she thinks it has something to do with his mother dying. And she also thinks that because of some circumstances that people don't want to talk about this mother's death, it has to be something suspicious about it. And she make it into a murder case when it doesn't actually is a murder case. And I found it really, really entertaining, because I read a lot of gothic stories, and to see something written as a classic making a parody of this classical gothic story is fun to me. It's also like it toys with the idea that what is real, what is not. How far does our delusions and our fantasizing go, and what is actually reality? And I also find it really funny that Jane Austen herself toyed with the idea that is reading bad for women, or is reading certain genres bad for women. I don't believe personally she thinks that, but the fact that she made a book about it, that maybe sometimes reading, there is such a thing as reading too many books. And I mean, have we not all been there when we read something and we become a little bit delulu? I felt like I could really connect with this book. And if you want to read something of Jane Austen, I think this is a good start because it's a little bit more light than her other novels and it's a lot smaller in size. Her other books are usually a lot longer and this is not as long. What I didn't like about it though was the fact that in her other work, she is very detailed in description. In this book, it isn't. I would assume that's because she died before she actually finished the book, so it's just like not a rough draft, but I don't think that it was meant to be this fully. I think she maybe was going to go in and put more detail into later on, but she sadly passed away before it was ever finished. That said, I still gave it a 5-star because I really truly loved it, and go check it out. It's a good book. Look, we're in Gotham City, and that means only one thing. I read a comic series or a graphic novel of the Joker, and it's called The Dark Knight Returns: The Last Crusade. It's actually a prequel to The Dark Knight, and I, as many know, love the Joker. I probably love all the stories there is about Joker. I know a lot of people felt like this story was unnecessary for being a prequel to The Dark Knight because The Dark Knight is such a good story on its own. But I really love how they added some extra storylines to the Joker. I don't really want to say too much about this because I feel like if I say too much, I kind of spoil the good parts of the story. I don't really know what to say without like spoiling the book. But I truly loved also the actual graphic of it and the way that it was written. I have actually read more Joker comics this year, but I felt like they didn't really actually represent Joker of who Joker is as a person, and I felt like this story truly captured the essence of the Joker and the chaotic chaos that you can see. So if you have read The Dark Knight, or you want to read The Dark Knight, or even watch the movie The Dark Knight, this is a really good prequel to that. And if you want to see more of the Joker and the Batman struggles, I personally is not a big Batman fan, which I know does not go together with my love for the Joker, or maybe it does because I prefer the Joker over Batman, who knows. But I felt like it was a good mixture of both Batman's side but also the side of the Joker. I know a lot of people said that they did not really like the text because the text was a little bit hard to read on some of the bubbles and stuff. I did not have an issue with it. And the art is just spectacular. I would totally give this a chance if you want to pick up like a comic this year, or if you're just into DC, or want to read something from Gotham City. It's amazing. Pick it up, yes. For sure. As maybe you can see from the background of this coffin, the next story is actually a vampire one. And it's not just a vampire story, it's also a webtoon, and it's one of the only webtoons I gave 5 stars this year. It is called The Delusion, and it's about this artist who really needs money for rent, and he is very poor, but he gets the chance for working with a young woman who is very known to mankind as old. But when he gets there, he realizes that she's not old at all. She's supposed to be 90 years old, but she looks more like she is in her 20s. And he doesn't really understand. She wants him to draw him a portrait of her. and he is to not leave her abode until he have done so, but he will be getting a free bedroom and he will get food to eat and everything he needs for his painting, as long as he paint this painting and doesn't leave. At first it's like this big mystery to why is he here, what is she, but we soon very soon realize that she's a vampire. And there is all these characters, like you have the vampire hunter who is like telling this artist that do not trust her, she's not to be trusted because she is a vampire. And then you have the butler who is in love with the vampire but also wants the artist gone because he wants her for himself. And after a while she feels like she will tell him her life story. So, because he said in a spare of a moment that he can't paint her as she truly looks like if he doesn't know her life, because knowing someone's life is knowing kind of what they've gone through, and that capturing the essence of the person. And she wants him to paint her as if she would be 90-ish, what is her true age, and he doesn't feel like he can do that without knowing who she is. So she decides to tell him her story of what she is, how she became what she is. And we have this jumping back and forward to how the artist is surviving in the castle and all the things going on in the castle, but also jumping back to the past when she tells him the story of how she turned into what it is she is and how she ended up where she is. I liked it. It was a good story. It kept me wondering and questioning everything until the very last chapter. So if you want to have a good webtoon, I do recommend this and that you check it out because it was really, really good and I liked it. It took me a while to read it because I don't usually buy the coins to like get all the chapters, so I had to read one chapter at a time every day. So it took me a while to read it, but if you want to, you can obviously unlock all the chapters in one go. I didn't do that, but this is a story that I do say it is worth it. And the art is just gloomy and perfect for the setting that is supposed to be. So if you want a new webtoon, go check it out. Hi everyone and welcome to Titanic. This is going to be a little small one, but I still wanted to add it because it is one of my 5-star reads. I don't know what this is, so please don't mind that. It only happened on this map and I don't really know why. But one of my 5-star is a book called Svenskarna på Titanic, which means the Swedes on Titanic. It's a book written by one of my favorite Titanic experts who is also Swedish. I own all his books and I've read all his books and all the interviews about him because I really find it fascinating. I'm also a huge Titanic fan, so everything that has to do with Titanic I'm all for. This book specifically is talking about the Swedes and what the Swedes did on Titanic. For example, the gym that was built in Titanic was produced and made by Swedes. The second or the third largest language speakers on Titanic were also Swedes. So there was a lot of Swedes on this boat. You even have the story about this couple who were to be married on Titanic and how they had the party and the marriage and the wedding on Titanic, but on the night of their wedding they all died. It is a very tragic story. It's a lot of things like this. We also get the background story of Titanic of the book, but the most specifically that I was more interested in was specifically Swedes who were on this boat. And we get told that story of all the Swedes that is of a bigger name, how they got their tickets, what they were going to do in America, why they were leaving Sweden, but also how their night went. Did they survive? Did they send any letters to the people after? What kind of rank did they live in? Were they like first, or were they like on the third floor? How did their life look like on the boat or the ship compared to how it was in Sweden, and so on. And I find it very interesting as a Titanic nerd and a Swede nerd. Unfortunately, this book is not out in translation, but if you are Swedish or if you know Swedish, I do recommend this book if you're really into Titanic and knowing more about Titanic. I liked it. It was definitely a 5-star read for me. A lot of the things taking up in the book I already knew, but I also were taught a lot of the things about the actual people. I felt like a lot of the other books have more been talking about Swedes in a general, or they've been speaking about the ship in general. This felt more personal because it had more specific stories from people, both before Titanic, during Titanic, but also how their families are doing now after Titanic, which I find really interesting. Yes, look, we're in the Hobbit house, and that only means one thing. This year I read Lord of the Rings trilogy and The Hobbit. The Lord of the Rings, I actually only gave 4 stars. Like, I enjoyed them a lot. Tolkien is now by far one of my favorite authors of all time. He's in top 5. I did not know I would enjoy Lord of the Rings this much as I do. Like, when I started, my love for Lord of the Rings. I'm doing a longer video on all Lord of the Rings books and the Hobbit books as well. So don't be afraid of that. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. I promise. But I gave The Hobbit a 5-star. And I feel like, The Hobbit is one of those classics that it's fun to read. It's whimsical. It has the lyrics. And I think I read The Hobbit after I took my class on Roman poetry, erotic poetry, And I read The Hobbit after, and it was in a lyrical sense. And I was just like, wow, my mind was blown, so to speak. I loved every second of this. I loved how fun the songs were. I love how fun and the story were. And there was so much to this story that was not in the Hobbit movies that I'm just like, why would you not have that? That part of the story is amazing. Why did we skip that? Considering there's 3 movies on 1 book. But there's so many fun things going on, and I'm just getting so excited, just like jumping around when I'm thinking about it. If you haven't read The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, I do truly 100% recommend you go and do it. What I truly love is Lord of the Rings is so descriptive. It's so truly, like, it feels like you're there because he's so good with words when it comes to describing things. Like, his way of describing nature is just like so heartwarming to me. And then you have The Hobbit, who does have that, don't get me wrong, but it feels like someone else kind of wrote it because it's a little bit different. And I understand why a lot of people do not like The Hobbit, because they feel like the lyrical sense and all the songs are just like interrupting the story, and they don't really fully understand the purpose of it. But give it a chance. It's truly amazing. It's just so it's going to be very dear to my heart. But I'm making a longer video on both Lord of the Rings and Tolkien's work and The Hobbit, so look forward to that. I'm also So, and I can also recommend the audiobook. After I read the book, I listened to the audiobook because I wanted to see if there was like a difference in the audiobook and reading it by myself, and I thought it was like a good listen while I was driving to work. And I truly liked it because the audiobook I listened to, they actually sang the lyrical songs. So if you're an audiobook listener, I do recommend listening to the audiobook as well, because they sing the songs, the Hobbit songs and the dwarf songs and all the songs, and it just gives you this extra oomph of content or understanding of how it could have sounded like, instead of just reading the text as it is. Even if reading it was amazing as well, I did like listening to the songs as well. So I do recommend both reading the book and the audiobook for this one. We're on a train, and the only reason why we are on a train is because I want to talk about Anna Karenina. I am not going to say why the train is important if you didn't know, because that is a huge spoiler. But the train is very important to the story. But I don't want to spoil that for you. So if you're interested in this story, you will have to actually read the book in getting to know why this is important. But Anna Karenina is probably, it was the second or the third book I read of 2023, and I loved it a lot. It's also a really it's a huge book, right? It has thousands of pages and it takes a long time to finish. But after reading Les Miserables the year before that, I felt like I wanted to give myself a new challenge of a new huge book. And this was the huge book I picked up, and I'm so happy I did, because it turned into be one of my favorite classics of all time. We follow this woman called Anna Karenina, who is struck between staying with her husband and being in this marriage that does not have any love whatsoever, or following her heart with her lover who she loves more than anything, but knowing that following her lover would mean losing everything, both her reputation, her child's reputation, and she would not have anything because her husband was also a rich political man, I think, and her lover did not really have much of an income or going for him. So she was struck between what does she choose and what does she pick, and what is right to pick. She tried for a very long time to have both, but obviously that does not go very well. Her husband was very understanding, and he was very like, I understand this is a thing you're doing, that you're seeing this man, but it has to stop now. Like, I will not go into it, we will not have a fight over it as long as you just leave this man. And Anna Karenina could not leave the man because she loved him too much, and she followed her heart in this one. But is following your heart really truly 100% correct all the time? And I love how they explore both class in this book, how it was to be a woman in Russia and how you were viewed as a woman, and how you were viewed as a woman who would like leave your husband for like a lover of a sort. And how vastly different it was. Like, if it would have been a man who did this, no one would bat an eye. But considering Anna Karenina was a woman, it was vastly different in how she was perceived by the public. I personally never liked Anna Karenina. I could feel for her and I can understand from a woman's point of view, but her way of thinking and her way of treating her husband, who was actually very, very understanding, kind of struck me as odd. Because she keeps telling us she's in this loveless marriage and she did not love him and he was cruel to her, but we never actually saw any evidence of him ever treating her badly. I mean, even when she got pregnant with her lover, her husband was like, I will treat this child as mine and I will take care of it as mine, just so the public will not, like, go ham on you, and we can still hush hush this all over, and I will take care of this as my child. And still then she chooses to disrespect him. And I feel like this entire marriage was just like made, well, it was going to be doomed whatsoever, because if you don't truly love someone, I think it's hard to stay with them. So I understand both point of views, but I had a hard time understanding Anna Karenina. But in the end, she did choose with her heart, and she followed her lover, and that has huge consequences in how her life begin to end up. And that's when the train comes into question. I'm going to make a longer, more analytical video on Anna Karenina, and I'm working on it, but I don't want to leave anything out of it, and I'm trying really hard to get all the pieces together so I don't analyze it wrongly. But soon we will going to get there. But yeah, if you're into Russian classic literature by Leo Tolstoy, read it. It's amazing. I'm going to read his other book, what is it called? Peace and War? Peace and War? Yeah. I'm going to read that this year and see if I like it as much. But a lot of people say that it's not as good because it's more war related and more war discussions. To me, that does not matter. I still love the way he wrote his story and how he made all these characters come to life. So I think I'm going to enjoy it, and if I don't, you will hear about it. Next book. The next book we have is actually another light novel. It's about a girl called Violetta, and she did the most crucial, horrible thing you could ever do. She was horrible and tried to murder her half-sister because her half-sister stole her life from her. The book starts with us being in prison, and she's reflecting on everything she did, and she swears that if she had one more chance, she would not do this ever again. And so happens to be she gets a second chance, and she is transported to the day where things started going south for Violetta. And this time she decides that I am not going to do the same mistakes again. I'm going to live a quiet life, and I'm going to be very good and very obedient, and I will not put my nose where it shouldn't be, because I want to live this time. The book, I swear I will not bother you again, is just so amazing. I know it's super cheesy, it has that going back in time story in a light novel. It has really cheesy art in it. It got that cheesy love story, but I don't know. I read it at a time where I just felt like this is what I needed, and therefore I gave it 5 stars. I know it's not the most quality kind of reading, but it just warmed my heart enough to give a 5 star to, and I am not sorry about that. I loved it a lot. I bought the rest of the series. There is a manga. I don't know if there's an anime on it. I'm not really sure. The manga, I felt, was very rushed, and it did not have all the details that the light novel do have, so I do recommend reading the light novel instead. But it's just so good, because the day she returns to Violet, it's her dad being like, I'm going to remarry, and this is your new mother, and this is your half-sister, and as a duke's daughter, she's like, oh my god, I'm getting a half-sister, and she's from down below, she's not even, high standard other duke daughter, so she feel like she's beneath her. And she's also in love with, one of the cutest guys in school and everything, and she's just bullying her half sister, and she's just doing horrible things to her half sister and being a mean, horrible person, so to speak. So obviously the guy does not like her. But on the second way around, she's trying to not bother her sister, trying to be kind to her sister, and she's trying to avoid the love interest because she knows that he's going to marry her half sister anyway, so she feels like there's no point in talking to him anyway. But this also makes it that all the characters around her change the perspective they have on her, because they're like, oh my god, she's actually kind and she has all this. So she's getting friends where she did not have friends before. She's getting like more support than she didn't have before. And the entire story just changes because she is changed as a person. But that just makes it more bothersome because she promised that she would not bother people, right? But now people are flocking around her because they enjoy the new Violet. So she's getting scared that this thing is going to happen again because she's trying so hard to not be noticed. Yet she is noticed. It is a good, cute one. It's very lighthearted. It is a light novel. It's easy to read. It does not take a lot of time or brain to consume the book. And if you feel like you're in a reading slump, like I was when I picked this up, it just picked me back up because it was so fun, so witty to read, and it just made me happy. And that is why it is a 5-star read. And we have one of the few horror books, I think, that is legitimately a horror book on my list for this year. I usually read a lot of horror, but this one is the only one that I felt like deserved a 5-star this year. It is also by one of my favorite authors, Alma Katsu. It's called the Fevror. Fevror. I always read that wrong as my dyslexia wants to say fever, but is whatever. What I love about Alma Katsu is she takes legitimately historic events and she makes them into a twist. She adds a little bit of horror, suspense to them. We have the first book that she wrote that I read that was called The Deep, which is about Titanic and what if it wasn't just an iceberg but it was some other forces making this go under, and we have ghost stories and all of that in that book. We also have the werewolf of like the Second World War, where people have this power where they get like werewolf powers and all that jazz. It's like a short story. And then you also have The Hunger, about like this the big cannibalism incident. I can't remember the name, but Expedition. I will write it down here. I can't remember it right now. And I love how she's taking all these things and she makes them into something new. I'm a huge history lover when it comes to books, like history and horror and gothic. I truly love these genres, and the fact that she's taking horror and history and putting them together, I really truly like. In this new book, The Fevror is about the concentration camps in America for the Japanese during the Second World War, because during the Second World War and after Pearl Harbor and everything that happened and the Japanese being on the wrong sides and blah blah blah, there were concentration camps, you can't really call them that, I guess, but there were camps for Asian people to be put together in fear that, for the Asian population, that they were spies or that they wanted any harm in America. So they were put together into a camp. In this camp, we follow this woman and her child. And one day, this woman, she finds out this chemical thing that they are hovering in this camp, which is supposed to be used as a chemical weapon. And she's also the only one that doesn't get an outbreak from it or something similar. And they want to do tests on her on why she's resistant to this, and like, can we take her DNA and see what's wrong or right with her so we can save the people who were infected. But this means that she is separated from her child, and when they do this, they're going to send the child to someone else. But the child, she escapes, and she's in the woods all by herself for a while. And we get back and forward to the woman, how she escapes from the collapse of the Americans and the camp to find her daughter, and her daughter's being in the forest and trying to find, like, where can I find mom? Like, where is my mom? And where do I go? And she is in the middle of the winter and everything, and it's cold, but she finds, I think it was a silver fox or a snow fox. She finds a fox, and she thinks it's her mom calling for her. And she's telling her, you need to go this way. So she goes that way. And she follows it. It's a cute story. It's a cute story, I do. But they also have that interesting fact of this chemical weapon. It also have a lot of truth in it. And in the back of the book, you can find, like, a lot of information, and I feel like Alma Katsu is really, really good at looking up information and facts, so she's very fact correct about a lot of her books. I personally didn't even know there was, like, Asian or Japanese camps at all in America, so that was, like, a new experience for me. So I did a lot of research after that just to, like, check it out. So I felt like I learned new things about it, as well as getting this story of the chemical weapon as well. So if you're into a little bit of history, but also a little bit on horror related mystery crime, because it's not really horror because there's not, like, a ghost or a monster coming after you, but it's still, like, the horror of a chemical weapon or this thing spreading. I do recommend it, so go check it out. She makes it into the fact that it's not, like, just a chemical weapon, but it is a ghost being, or it's a curse going on that comes from a specific island, and there's a big story on it. I would say it's more lore because it's not actually facts correct, but that is what she's using. She's using a legend from this big revenge thing, and she's using that as a tool for the chemical weapon and stuff. It's really interesting. Go check it out if you're interested. And we have some poetry. I know, we don't usually... I usually don't give 5 stars to poetry. I have a hard time with poetry. But during 2023 summer, I went a summer course on Latin, Roman poetry, love poetry, that was talking about sexuality and poetry in one, and I fell in love with an author named Catullus. I know, crazy. What is something, I can't really specifically say, like, this poem or this poem I enjoyed rather much, because sure, I have them, but they are very, very graphic, because this man did not go easy on his critics or his way of writing erotica, because that is basically what he did. He was an erotic poem writer. And I'm here for it. It was amazing to read it. I feel like if you want to get into reading more poetry, or if you want to read something from the Roman Empire or, like, you know, the Latin era, and you're afraid that, oh, I will not understand it. Like the Iliad, the Odyssey, they are so hard to understand. I do not want to get into that territory. This is a good start. I knew perfectly well that I loved Ovidius. That's why I'm not taking Ovidius in this talk, because I already read Ovidius long before this. So when I read Ovidius in summer last year, I was like, yeah, I love this man. Praise the roof, this man. But I did not expect myself to love Catullus as much. This man had not much going for him, right? Like he wanted to be writing poetry and everything, and his family was like, ew, no, and he threw everything away just to be writing what he's writing. And when he did so, he also did it in a very, very graphic way. If his critics said that they didn't like what he was writing, which they did, he would write a poem about this critic, explaining very graphically what he wanted to do with his anal. I know. Graphic. It was a lot of talk about public shaming someone with beetroots. I know. Very graphic. But if you read these poems, they are very, very, I feel like they are very, very modern. It feels like you would have written them today. He also was a strong believer when it came to wanting them to be short. His poems were not long ass stories. He preferred to keep them rather short. And I kind of felt like a Twitter warrior kind of thing. You're mad about something, so you write a short little tweet about it, insulting someone or something that you do not like. I'm getting those vibes from Catullus, and I was all there for it because it was so entertaining reading them. Him being, but it was also he do have some love poetry that is genuinely really cute and really romantic, but with an erotic twist to them. But I felt like most of his work was just very attack, and I don't know. I enjoyed it. I found it really funny to read about. So if you want to give it a try to something that feels more modern, that it's not hard to understand it, but it's genuinely a good fun story and poems to read, I do say Catullus is the one for you, because he's so easy to get into, and you don't really have to use much of your brain cells to comprehend what it is he's talking about. You also don't have to have a lot of pre-knowledge about people or things, because he's very, very general in his way of speaking. It's not very he's don't use that much symbolism as maybe many others do, which means that you need to have a background knowledge of a lot of things. Catullus is more very straightforward. He's you offended my art, so now I will offend your ass. I liked it. He was fun. It was really fun. So yeah, go check him out. Also, fun fact about Catullus is when when Christianity came, they only translated certain works, and they decided on what they thought was proper and not proper. Catullus was not proper because he was very much foul in his mouth, and he was very, very erotic, and they could not feel anything more than this is just erotic for the way of being erotic, and he's just being very, very why is he using all these words? So they didn't translate or keep his work. But we are very lucky that we could find that his books, or the scrolls of his work, they're not complete, but a lot of them are there. They found in a basket in his hometown that someone saved. So just because of that, and we find them in the 1600s, 1500s, 1600s, something like that. We have them today. So the reason that Christianity came, they took all the art things and all the poetry, and they were like, oh, these are proper. These we can translate for the people later on to enjoy. And Catullus was not one of them. But the fact that someone saved it in a basket in his hometown, and we found them many, many years later, and we can still enjoy them today. Apparently, the original scrolls that were found are gone today, because after they were found, they were copied into 2 copies, and the original is gone, and one of the copies are gone, but one of the copies are still around somewhere, so we don't really know what happened to the original or one of the copies. But one of the copies are still intact, and that is the one that has been used to translate all the works that we have found of him. So it is kind of like a cool story about his life there and his work. Like a little side note for you. And this book I'm going to talk about, I actually already made a longer analyzing book, a video on, and you can find it in the description below that I will leave it. It is called The Heart of a Dog. I love this book. It is very good with the theme of the winter. It's about this mad scientist who exchange body parts between humans and animals to make them have a longer life, make them have fruitfulness in having children, even if they may be too old. They're taking like egg stems and everything from animals and putting them into humans. But in this, he decides, what if we do it the other way around? So he's putting human parts into a dog, and the dog slowly turns into a human. But it also has all the bad qualities of the human whose body parts he's taking, because this human was an alcoholic, he was abusive to women, and he was a gambler. This dog also gets these characteristics, and he doesn't really know how to stop him, which means the mad scientist, so to speak, starts to question what is good and what is wrong when it comes to like different experiments. Like, is this like humane to do, or should we just let nature have its path? Should we really help all these humans, or should we just like, are these experiments good or not good? It was a really good book. I'm not going to talk too much about it because I already made a long video on it. So if you're interested in like dystopian Russian mad scientist kind of book, I do say check this book out. Otherwise, check the description out where you can see like me talking like 20 minutes about this book, because it's a really good book, and I do recommend it. I don't know, this year or 2023 was the year when I started reading a lot of Russian literature, and I just realized I love Russian literature. Like, Russian classic literature is just so dark and gloomy, and I like it. It has that dystopian feeling to it without being dystopian, and they question really humane questions, Yeah, I liked it. It was good. I do recommend. And the last book I read from 2023 was actually Father Christmas by Tolkien. And it also happened to be a 5-star read. I did not think I would give it a 5-star. I thought it was going to be somewhere up there, maybe like a 4. But I didn't know it was going to be a 5-star read. So I'm really, really happy about that. And it was really, really good. For you guys who doesn't know, Father Christmas is a book that Tolkien did not actually write himself as a book. But when his kids were younger, they would write letters to Santa or Father Christmas, and he felt like he wanted them to have an answer from Santa and not just send him one-sided letters. So he decided to be Father Christmas and write stories and letters back to the kids. And they were so wholesome and so cute. He would like write really cute stories about like explosions happened in the factory. He had like this polar bear that would like help him with different things, but he was like a big klutz and he would ruin everything all the time. He would also have explanations to why they didn't get the toys that they actually asked for, but why they got like other kind of toys, even if it was because like the toys were ruined because of the polar bear and stuff. And I feel like that was like a good way for him to explain to his kids why maybe he couldn't buy all the stuff that his kids really wanted for Christmas. He also did a lot of doodling and pictures that was really beautiful. And in the book that I read, they scanned the letters and all the art, and then had it like transcribed on the other side so you could like read it easily. He also put so much time into the writing. Like when he was writing as Father Christmas, he did a lot of squiggly lines because, you know, Father Christmas is very old. So when he writes, it's very shaky. And then you have the polar bear. When the polar bear was writing, it was big fat letters because he had to hold it with his two paws and have to have a big pen to hold it with the paws, you know. So that makes it big lettering. And I don't know, it's very whimsical and very wholesome and very cute, and I just feel like it adds another layer of what I thought Tolkien was. And I'm like, he was such a good father, just knowing like these things, like that's such a nice and cute things to do for your children. And I thought it was really wholesome and really cute. And the stories per se are not masterpieces. They're obviously not going to be Lord of the Rings kind of story or Hobbit, but they're so wholesome, and the thought process behind them and how much he actually put into every letter to his children are just so, like, he even made like a language for the people of, like, he put so much time and effort into everything, and I feel like that's very commendable, for real. I liked it. Definitely 5-star. I do recommend reading it during Christmas, or in December, or when you have like the winter life going for you, maybe at least some snow and stuff. But you can obviously read it whenever, but I think it gives you like that extra Christmassy feeling if you read it during Christmas. The last book I really want to talk about is actually an audiobook. Someone told me that there's something called Warhammer Horror, and they told me Warhammer Horror is really, really good. I've never been a horror like Warhammer fan, but I did not know that they had horror books. And I thought to myself, well, they told me it was good, so, you know, I have to try it out. And I found this audiobook, which is almost like an audio play, because it has sound effects, it has like all those things that you wanted to have. You got the rain going like in the background, and people, like, different characters having different narrators and different voice actors. So it was like listening into a movie or like a radio play. And I thought that was pretty cool because I have not listened to a lot of those kind of narratives before. The one I'm talking about is The Watcher in the Rain. And I really, really enjoyed it. I don't know, like, the story itself did not really 100% speak to me. Maybe it was a 4, but the fact that it had like a full cast with all these sound effects, it just made it so more immersive to like take it in. And I know I listened to it while I was like traveling to work, and I forgot where I was, and I was just like in that moment, just like taking in all of it. And I love how there's so many like these kind of audiobooks today because it engages a new kind of audience to take part in audiobooks and books overall, and I really liked it. It's about this empire who has this endless reign and is being cut off from this city is being cut off from the empire, and you have this sadistic soldier who's looking for a specific bot or something, and it has that sci-fi Warhammer thing going for it, as well as like this huge play with all these speakers and everything. I don't know, like I really really liked it. Like it made me, I was gonna say it made me feel wet, but that's very low. That's not what I mean. But considering it has so much effect on the fact that the city is drowning and the rain is coming and it's endless and it's just like overflowing everywhere, I just felt like, this crumbling in on me with like water everywhere, and it's just raining and you can't get away from it and you're stuck. And it was just so immersive and so good, and I can't get over that. And I don't know, it wasn't that long to listen to either, so I do recommend it if you want to give it a try. It did not have that many hours to it. I will definitely pick up more Warhammer horror. I have a few on my reading list that I really want to get to, but I haven't had the time to. Like always when it gets to your TBR list, right? You never get the time to read all of it, and you finish one book and you add 5 more, so it's never ending. But yeah, these are my top reads for 2023. It was crazy. There was like a lot of them. Some of the books that I have already read multiple times, I did not add into this. For example, Frankenstein and all that. I read them every year. Sherlock Holmes as well. I read them every year because I know I love them. They are 5-star reads. They are huge in my heart. But I still love them all the same. But I felt like technically they are not 2023 reads because it was not the first time I read them. So I could not add them to this story or this video rather. But yeah, I think this is going to be a very long video, so I'm sorry about that. And if you are here, or and you made it through the entire video, much love to you. Thank you so much for listening to me rambling about books and all other jazz. And yeah, thank you. Leave a comment down below which is your favorite book of 2023. Is this something you're looking forward to reading 2024? Or was there any of these books that caught your interest that maybe you will pick up or add to your TBR list? I would appreciate it if you want to leave a like as well. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening to me, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!